Hey everyone, I'm Amy Connell. Thanks for tuning into Lessons to My Teenage Self. This is the shortcut you need to thrive in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. As a personal trainer and nutrition coach, I'm passionate about empowering you to find your best version of health. Each week we dig into one topic that I wish I had known as a teen. We are continuing our series on intuitive eating. Remember, these are all episodes I originally did on my Graced Health podcast. If you would like to hear the full version, go over to the Graced Health podcast, season 21, to listen. Let's jump into my conversation with registered dietitian Kristen Bunger on Principle 3, Make Peace with Food. Today I have with me Kristen Bunger. Let me tell you a little bit about Kristen before we jump in. She is MSRD registered dietitian, Christian registered dietitian, and author. She's passionate about helping clients and readers find peace with food, which is what we're talking about today, spoiler alert, and their bodies. She's been practicing as a dietitian for 16 years at all levels of care with clients struggling with eating disorders, disordered eating, yo-yo dieting, and body image dissatisfaction. Kristen, welcome to Graced Health.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Okay, I'm really excited about talking about intuitive eating principle number 3 today. Make peace with food. So first, I would love it if you can just give us a high-level explanation of this.
Yes. So basically, I look at this principle of intuitive eating as the surrender principle. So we're waving the white flag. I tell my clients diet culture is never going to surrender, and so for the war to be over, we have to surrender. We have to give up the battle so that we can actually win the war. And the only way to do that is to actually just leave the battlefield and just retreat and surrender and do it differently. So this is the surrender step. This is the surrender principle, and it's a very difficult and a very powerful, game-changing way to handle the years and years of buildup and residue of diet culture and grief over body and weight and all of those things. It's coming to a place where you say, I am no longer going to use food to try to change my body. And I think that's where it ultimately goes to, right, is with body image, because so much of intuitive eating is directly related to body image. I'm actually going to think about nourishing my body and honoring my body instead of what is this going to do or not do to change the way that I look.
That is really scary for someone,
Yes.
especially from my community. We've been entrenched in diet culture for so long, and
Yes.
We are at varying phases of letting that go.
Yeah.
There's a loss of control that comes with that.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us conceptually really like this idea of intuitive eating.
Absolutely.
And then there's this added element of but what if it changes my body?
Right.
What if I get bigger?
Right.
So it is. I'm curious, what do you typically guide your clients with to have that first step?
The first step of surrender oftentimes is just getting to the point of saying, I actually do want this. I'm not just at the exploration stage. I'm not just listening to the podcast. I'm not just sitting in the office with the dietitian and just kind of evaluating, am I at that pre-contemplative stage of change, or am I ready to take some action? Because we learn, one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is faith without actions is dead, right? And so I oftentimes think about that. If I have faith, but I don't have any actions associated with it, then it's not alive. It's not living. It's not a living word that's inside of me. And so I think oftentimes I'll tell my clients, if you're interested in intuitive eating, and if this sounds really appealing to you, what are you willing to do? And what is the least scary way to do it at first? I think of making peace with food and finding freedom with food as a hierarchy. We have to go slow and steady wins the race every time, and we have to start with the things that are the least scary. And what happens is all of those what ifs that are so demoralizing and just utterly terrifying, those begin to melt away as we do the scary things and we see that nothing horrible is happening.
That is really good. I've really struggled with social media lately because I just feel like there are so many rules that just all kinds of people are putting out there. I mean, and with the wellness industry has just lost its mind and is not doing any help with giving us peace with food. But a lot of us have grown up with you need to eat this particular food and don't eat these types of food. So how can we get over that?
Yeah, I think you just talking about the neurotransmitters in the brain is so powerful. And I give this example a lot. We do have very well-worn paths in our brain with our food rules and what we grew up hearing. And they're so well-worn, not because they're just habitual, but because they're tied to worth and value. Everybody's story is going to look different. So do the hard thing with the easy thing and let that be, kind of your gateway into some of those neuro pathways that just seem so impossible to get to, but they're not impossible. And that's the most fun part about all of this, is that it's not impossible.
That's really good.
There are ways that you can recognize that the decision fatigue is real. It's really difficult for me right now to do this. It feels so overwhelming mentally, and I need to take some of that mental load off. And then also, obviously, this is not just a plug for my business or your business, but it's just a plug for our clients and our listeners. If you are struggling with this, I just don't, I tell my clients this all the time. So I've never been able to do anything alone that's been remarkable in my life. And so they're going to probably need some sort of accountability coaching, nutrition therapy, something to help them through that. And I think it's a really good investment.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I can definitely attest to that. So how can we enjoy the Cheez-Its when we want them, be at peace with them?
Yeah, I think it's this beautiful place that we're all trying to get to, called Peace with Food, where Cheez-Its and all of the other foods that we know scientifically benefit our bodies more than Cheez-Its, right? They're all in the same place, and they're all neutral. And so making peace with food is actually the thing that is going to help most. I think this is the irony of this step, is everybody thinks if I make peace with food and if I let myself eat what I actually really want to eat, I'm never going to be healthy because I'm only going to eat ultra-processed food. And the irony of that is when we give ourselves permission to eat whatever we want with mindfulness and moderation and just balance in mind, and we do it in a stepwise way, and we do it with accountability and in community with other people, what actually ends up happening is we eat less highly processed foods. When we actually truly make peace with food, the Cheez-Its don't have that zing anymore. They don't have quite as much of an urgency around them anymore.
I think that highlights exactly what happens. I can't have it. Oh, I'm going to have a little bit. Well, I had a little bit, so I'm just going to have the whole box.
Exactly.
Or I'm going to have way more than I want, rather than just having Jenny Eden Burke, who is not in this series, but she practices intuitive eating. She was talking about wheat thins and how she would just go bananas on wheat thins. And then when she slowed down and started being mindful about it, she said, I realized I didn't even like wheat thins. I just thought I did.
I think one of the biggest fears is if I allow myself to make peace with food, if I really do surrender, I'm not going to win the war. I'm just going to be overcome. They're literally like diet culture, food, all of my urges to eat these foods that I can't have or that I shouldn't have are going to completely overwhelm me and overcome me. And I just want to encourage your listeners, if that were the case, so many of us would not be preaching this message. If we as professionals were setting you up for complete and utter defeat, we would not be in business, and we ethically wouldn't be able to do it. Also, I've been practicing for 17 years, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again, that those are the biggest fears that come up. And then as we surrender little by little, day by day, as we continue to wave the white flag, like as you continue to surrender and win these battles, the war is going to be won, and you are not going to be completely overtaken by your desire for food, because as we know, it's all about the food, and it's not about the food at all. And so as we manage and continue to address our issues with food, what is actually going to happen is the grace and mercy of the Holy Spirit is going to actually be able to get behind all of, because the food oftentimes is it's a dam, right? There's all of this emotional and mental and even trauma. There's all of these issues that are going on behind the food. The food is just kind of in the way of us getting to the root issues. And once we remove the food and we are actually at peace with the food, then the Holy Spirit can begin to do a work in us where we really actually need it the most, right?
That's wonderful encouragement. Thank you. Kristen, tell people how they can connect with you. And then I would love for you to offer the one simple thing from our conversation that you would like us to remember today.
Yeah. So you can connect with me on Instagram at Kristen Bunger RD, or at my website, which is bodyandsoulnutritioncounseling.com. And I would love to hear from any and all.
That's all for today. Tune in next week as we challenge the food police. I know you'll have fun with that. Now take today's lesson and go out there and live the life God has for you and your amazing original body.